What's up, Team Holyoke? You made it. How great is this? I don't know if this ever has been done before, an all boards municipal meeting. I've been wanting to do it my first year, but it's not like I had a whole lot of other things to do, So welcome everybody. There's agendas and agenda packets here by Libby. There's a sign-in sheet going around. And more important, for that sign-in sheet, please make sure I have an email address for you too. Nilka and I want to strengthen our email database for all members that are on our different boards and commissions. I don't have everyone's emails, and I think I should do better at that. So we have a lot of things we want to go over. First of all, thank you so much for taking time. This is an official public meeting. I'm going to start the meeting. We do have, by note taker, everybody knows the executive director, Nilka. Nilka's going to be taking notes. I will draft the meeting minutes and I will forward them to all of you. If you can take some time to read it through, give me a thumbs up, good, suggestions to change, whatever. Once I have the final version, I'll send it back to you so you can officially receive it at your next board meeting, so that we can, keep up with our practices around the open meeting law. I'll have the minutes posted on the website and all that good stuff. So here's our agenda, just at a glance. A lot of what we're trying to achieve that we want to achieve here is just kind of get a basic understanding. There's people in here who have been on boards for the city of Holyoke for a very long time, and there's others that haven't, are fairly new. And so I thought that, and throughout my tenure here, a lot of good questions come up, things that I think we need to go over just to make sure everyone's on the same page as far as expectations as a board member, policies, and other laws, so that we can be more supportive to support the work that you're doing, the obligations that you're doing, and we avoid you getting jammed up in that process, whether if it's conflict with a law, maybe a member from the public, when it comes to records requests and all that stuff. You guys have to follow the same rules and procedures, and I want to make sure that you all understand the basic format of our administrative operations that we have that can help better support your work and keep up with your obligations under your purview of what you're appointed for. But if we can just really quickly, because one of the exciting things is, I'm sure you guys are seeing each other for the first time. If we can really quick just name the board you're in so that folks kind of know and understand who's in this space right now, and just have that idea. So let's start in the front row. Lynn, name, board.
Lynn Horan, and I'm vice chair.
Here, just grab the mic and pass it around.
All right. Lynn Horan, and I am vice chair on the Commission of Disabilities.
Andrew Parker, Public Library.
Victor Machado, Holyoke Public Library.
George Meddy, President of Holyoke Public Library Corporation and Fire Commissioner on the Fire Commission.
Aaron Vega, Director of OPED.
Jack Xiao, Cologne Holyoke Public Library.
Jeff Horan, Conservation Commission.
Mimi Panich, Planning Board.
Joseph Charles, Vice Chair of the Historical Commission.
Chris Gauthier, Chair of the Historical Commission.
Nicole Arnold, Chair of the Board of Health.
Laurie Osborne, Board of Health.
Anthony Luciano, Licensing Board.
Paul Burns, Appeals Board.
Brenna Leviton, Library Board.
Mike Falsetti, Housing Authority.
Alex, I'm the License Board Clerk. Jessica LeBron Martinez, Disability Commission.
Jose Maldonado Velez, Holyoke Housing Authority.
Kate Crookemeyer, Planning Board.
Thank you. Jeff Trask, Chair of Fire Commission.
Michael Moriarty, License Board.
Morris Partee, Board of Appeals.
Tom Gilchrist, nominee to be on the library board.
Fran Hoy, Chairman Holyoke Gas and Electric.
Joe Keatner from Board of Public Works.
Libby Hernandez, Vice Chair of Board of Public Works.
Teresa Cooper Gordon, Chair of Holyoke Housing Authority Commission.
Tom Creed, Redevelopment Authority.
Carl Eager, Holyoke Economic Development Industrial Corporation, as well as the Redevelopment Authority.
Jennifer Keat, Office of Planning and Economic Development.
Neil Cortez, Mayor's Office.
Executive Director, right? Kelly Kern, Personnel Director, and I also sit on the Council on Disabilities, Commission on Disabilities.
Lisa Ball, Holyoke City Solicitor.
Alicia Zoller, Administrator with the Office for Community Development.
Great, thank you so much. So I just wanted to quickly do that real quick because, you know, the way that I operate, or my mind operates, I you know, and a lot of you, right, we love local government work. It's why we get involved. We want to help our community. And so you've heard me say before, government is not a top-down institution. Government's designed to be a bottom-up, middle-out organization, and everything always leads back to the people somehow, one way or another, in that organization. And each of you, as appointed representatives to serve on your respective boards, you're the people, right? You're volunteering your time to serve on, and some are, you know, some are small committees, maybe. Others are boards with, you know, big responsibilities. Fire Commission, 3-member civilian board, believe it or not. All the hiring, all the firing, grievances. They set the policy. They are in charge of all the assets of the fire department. 3-member volunteer civilian board. Same holds true, Board of Health, DPW. You know, you have these organizations that have direct control and have the necessary technical assistance from their staff to execute the actual, right? Because, you know, I don't expect George Betty to know fire code when responding to a fire or whatever the case. We need the people. Other boards have just regular staff support, clerical related items, and then there's some boards with no staff support. And so either way, you're serving on these boards and these commissions, you're representing the community, you have a MGL purview, local ordinance purview, and so you can execute your duties. And what we want to do is make sure that as you do that, we're able to keep up with the gaps and the needs. But as you go forward, this is kind of, you know, for the last 3 years, November's 3 years I've been served as mayor, this is kind of the, you know, the core belief in equity commitments. As you go forward with the work that you're doing, you know, we want to make sure that everybody understands our community is very different at every corner of our city. Personalities, perspectives. I have a lot of different personalities, perspectives in this room today, serving on boards. Boards, you know, is you know, not everyone on a board is going to think the same way, right? In government, if things were that easy, things would be a lot quicker and much more efficient. But there are rules of engagement when you're serving on a board so that you can get to a point where you're making decisions. But before we dive into that, the basic core belief, and this what helps us keep us focused and unified. Basic core belief: at the heart of our work lies the health and well-being of our community, aimed at enhancing the quality of life for all of the citizens. We approach our responsibilities with compassion, all while diligently upholding the laws, whether if it's local ordinances, Massachusetts general laws, federal laws. I think more or less this reflects all across the board. I think everyone can, you know, agree to this, but certainly, like, if there are ideas or suggestions and whatever, I'm open to that. But just understand that when you're appointed on these boards, this is kind of this is our shared core belief across the city. And then I've identified some equity commitments. One, we intentionally build a community that is anti-racist, inclusive, culturally responsive. We respect, embrace, and celebrate the diversity that enriches our city. And we also strive to create a culture of acceptance, empathy, ensuring that everyone feels valued and can contribute to our community's success. Again, these are just shared agreements across all organizations as we go forward doing work for this city. This is at the center of what we do to make sure that we're building a good quality of life for everybody in every corner of our city. When you get appointed on these boards, most of you have already been on. I try to meet with everyone for the first time. These are really like my criterias and board expectations, right? Like I don't have any real political thought about what I want you to do on that board. I never call you up and tell you what to do or how to vote or what you should support or shouldn't support. My only real expectations from people that I appoint onto boards: collaborate, communicate, be transparent with your fellow board members and stakeholders. Stakeholders includes whether if it's the staff support in your organization, if it's the public that you're working with, and other colleagues across local government, and certainly want to work together. Make sure you're communicating, be transparent. Don't do anything illegal. I think that's pretty straightforward. You got a purview, stick to it, whatever that purview is. And also, we have governing factors involved as you try to meet your purviews, like, again, open meeting law and other policies to keep you out of trouble. And speaking of policies, even though you're a volunteer and you're not getting paid, technically you're kind of sort of municipal employee representative of the city. So we're going to go over some policies to make sure that you understand, when we talk about sexual harassment, for example, social media, and other related policies that we're adopting as our personnel policies. You guys got to follow those policies too. You're representatives of the community, and you're held to an expectation, to a standard, and we want to make sure that we're protecting the organization as a city, we're protecting you, and we're keeping you out of any unnecessary knots. And also, when there are vacancies on boards and commissions, obviously, let me know. Whenever there's vacancies in any of your commissions, I have to appoint people to replace them. So just let us know, and we'll try to help do some research. I know library's been asking, but it sounds like you're all, because they're all here, I think.
Not all, yeah, we're good.
You're good. And Historical Commission, I think we got to find some members. Among other members, I'm hoping I can find some way we could better communicate to the masses, open board seats so we can engage the public to volunteer on these boards and keep our government flowing. These are other kind of, when I say criteria, these are just like, my expectations, our expectations. Some questions that keep coming up. I know some of you went on and probably created bylaws, which is great whenever there's new members, something they can reference to if they've never served on the board. Well, how do you do X? But the first things first here, as boards, we want to make sure you organize yourselves. There's a lot of work involved. Obviously, you already know pick your chair, right? But more importantly, be clear on your business norms, including who's responsible for what. Some of you that have staff support, you want to be clear in what your expectations are with that staffer, whether if it's a department head or a clerical admin support that you have for your board. And for those that are under OPED, we're going to go under that. We're going to talk a little bit about that after this one. Those that have that depend on staff support from the Office of Planning and Economic Development And then there's other boards and organizations that either have their own staff that's not OPED, it's within their own department purview, or some sort of admin support. I know Kelly, who's our personnel director, provides support for the Disabilities Commission, right? And there's kind of little strategic arrangements like that. But be clear in who's doing what, because the important things: drafting and posting agendas, drafting and posting minutes, distributing minutes. If you don't have staff support, someone on your board has to do that. So you want to be clear in who on your commission or board is going to be taking on those tasks, making sure the agenda is posted within 48 hours in advance. Legal will go over the open meeting law stuff. Making sure someone on your board is drafting those minutes, facilitating communication to stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, whether if it's city staff or other departments, sometimes the one question I get a lot is legal questions, right? Like, I need a legal question, or I need legal opinion about this and that. And you could only imagine when, let's say, 5 different boards and each member on that board are all calling the legal department asking the same question, that could get inefficient and can bottleneck. So we want to make sure you streamline on your board who's going to be responsible for what. The best practice, I would suggest, right, is your chair. The chair is the key person on your board that's supposed to keep things flowing. You want to identify somebody whose job it's going to be. If you need a follow-up, some boards need, I don't know, if it's a building issue, oh, well, we need to talk to the building commissioner. And next thing you know, 3 people are calling the building commissioner from that board, when you just need one, and then that one person report back. Or if you have staff support, maybe you put that responsibility to the staff, or just be clear who's going to do it, so that you guys are operating a little bit more effective in how you're moving around information. Same thing with communicating information to the public. A lot of you guys are doing important work that might require public engagement, public feedback or input. Maybe you have a big meeting coming up and you want to work with your fellow board members to understand how strategically you want to communicate that, so you're consistent with the information. You're not sharing anything that's conflicting or anything that's confusing. And then also, just kind of making sure that you're a little more organized in how you're getting information out. Or preparing information packets, right? Somebody's got to be responsible for that. Following up on tasks. I know oftentimes you get boards that get asked for letters of support, right? Who's drafting the letter? Who's going to present it at the next board meeting? And just your group norms and how you want to organize yourselves to get through, getting a final approval, a letter of support, or whatever information that's trying to be extracted from your boards. Managing records and files, and legal department's going to go over that too. But obviously, you're subject to open records law, right? And your emails, that is, if you're communicating business via email, that it falls under the open records law, and Lisa will go over that. But yeah, your minutes, your agendas, whatever public documents that are coming through your board meeting, those records have to be managed, filed somehow. So again, making sure that as a group, you have some sort of system that is keeping that information flowing. Obviously, you already know these: scheduling your meetings in person, virtually, or hybrid. We can still go hybrid. The governor's extended the law to, I think, March 2025, March 31, 2025. We're on that. When we hear, hey, it's being extended again, or officially now law that you can be hybrid and you no longer have to say in your public meetings that the governor is allowed this, that, and the third, and all that other stuff, we'll definitely let you know on the back end, so that we can make sure that you just know how you want to organize yourselves on that front. And then public meetings need to be scheduled for 5 p.m. or later. If you're not familiar with the city ordinance, you can't have no public meeting scheduled before 5 o'clock. You can if you get permission from the mayor through the board chair signature, and then the city council president has to also confirm that and sign and approve as well. through your board chair, the ordinance says, not your staff, not the department head. Ordinance says board chair. You can work with your staff, get it drafted, but we want to make sure the letter comes from the board chair to the mayor requesting permission for whatever reason it may be to have a meeting at 2 o'clock, let's say, because circumstances happen where you kind of have to, and so you have some flexibility. But again, like, there's rules of engagement that we have to follow. I know it sounds silly, but it's the ordinance. Any questions on that part? And Aaron, you're up. So again, this goes back to, there's those boards and commissions. You have how many? 9 total that depend on staff support from the OPED office of 7 staff. And so I just wanted to give Aaron an opportunity to just kind of share.
Thanks, Mayor. Good to see everybody. Thanks for taking time out. This is a memo that we've been putting together that we were going to give out to the board, all of our boards and commissions, and then obviously Mayor Garcia put this together, so this is something that he pulled from. So I'll just go through a couple of these points. Again, we have 9 boards and commissions and advisories within OPED, and all of them are very different, but we want to provide the level of support that they all need. So as I mentioned, there's a small but mighty team that OPED provides support to 9 boards and commissions and advisory groups. I'll just call them entities for the rest of this. That will entail all the different ones. But they're not all created equal. They all have different tasks, different missions, and a different meeting schedule. So each of these entities are made up of volunteers, as the mayor said, except the licensing commission. The licensing commission does get a stipend that's in ordinance, but all the rest of our boards are volunteer. They're all dedicated to their work. They provide meaningful support to the overall planning and economic growth of the city. So every board and commission that's under our purview is adding to the work that we do or moving the work that we do forward. Each of these entities are established and governed and supported in different ways. As I mentioned, every board is different, how they interface with their primary mission of OPED. So this was just a memo to kind of bring together some of the overall things that the mayor is talking about today. So all boards, all entities that OPED oversees should expect staff to help schedule meetings, either in person, virtual, hybrid. We do like to have a set schedule, a monthly schedule. Licensing board meets on the first Wednesday. Hoyok Redevelopment Authority meets on the third Wednesday. Helix tries to meet on the third or fourth Thursday. Of course, life gets in the way. Things happen, holidays happen, but also important issues or items come up, and often special meetings are assigned. Often the licensing board, especially around renewal time and event time, and so sometimes there's a support letter that needs to be drafted or an agreement that needs to be done by the Hoyok Redevelopment Authority. So we do ask that there's some flexibility for people to be able to come together and sometimes off schedule. Everyone should be, that we will submit agendas that the entities have drafted and will ensure the proper posting notification. But we're not necessarily creating your agenda. Now, again, this is a little bit different, right? For the planning board, obviously working with Jeff, our principal planner, he is with the staff with the board, creating the agenda so that everyone knows what's going on. Same with licensing. Alexandra, who's a licensing agent, she is getting all the applications and creating the agenda for the board. But the Historic Commission, they know the work they're doing, and they'll help create the agenda themselves and give it to Jennifer. So there is differences, but we will work with you to create the agenda, but we'll make sure it gets posted and notifications are properly done. We prepare all the internal packets for members, and if you go online, all those packets are online, and we're getting closer to getting all of our minutes online. We're working on that. As the mayor says, we'll get there. But we are, those information, remember, it can come from any entity. So it may come from the internal, maybe come from a memo from an internal member, external documents, outside information, perhaps on a project that you're working on, anything that deals with the scope that you're working on. So we will put those together, make them available to you, hopefully, a few days before your meeting so you can review them, and then we will post that packet online. So again, that's our job. We will take care of that piece of it. We will draft and distribute meeting minutes. This is the bane of our existence, minutes. And so we are really trying to work with, and it was interesting that the mayor mentioned and that the idea that commission members are making their own minutes. I think the Historic Commission, they do their own minutes, but my staff is charged with doing minutes for the other commissions, and we're trying to figure out a much better way of working with that. So we'd love to work with the commission and the different boards with us to figure out if there's a better way to streamline this. Because every board wants minutes differently, and often when a new chair comes in, they want to change things up. So it really is helpful if there's a appointed person, be it a secretary or a clerk position, if you have one on your board or commission, to actually work with us to get the minutes done. We're happy to work with you on them, but again, every board does them a little bit differently. Draft decisions, that's more of a planning board thing, so we draft decisions or any agreements. HRA, HEDIC gets into agreements. We will finalize those with legal and get them back after the boards have approved them. We will post the information on the city website as necessary. We are, again, working a lot on that, trying to form that, trying to get our page up to date. You may appoint somebody from your board or commission that wants to work with us on information you'd like on your website, but we are actually charged. There's no tech support that we have for the website. It's my staff also doing website updates, right? So way out of their purview, but that's the deal that we have with Proud City. So if you want to add other information to your website, add links, add pictures, love to work with you on it. If you can appoint someone from your board that wants to work with us, we can't always just give sign-in information, so it'll have to be our staff doing it. But if you want to update your website, your page on the website, please let us know. And then again, of course, perform general clerical, letters of support, correspondence to other departments, and we'll, again, make sure that they're properly mailed. But we do ask most boards to come up with that language, right? If you're putting together a working group or you're putting together a letter that you're sending out to abutters or approving a grant or whatever, the language should come from you, the board. It's your vision, it's your approval. We can give you a draft to start it, we can edit it as needed, but again, we'll take care of getting it out there. But again, we look to you to kind of help us put that together on that general tracking. The mayor mentioned the drive. So we have internal city drives that keep all of the final documents, right? I don't need to have on our internal drives the 15 different versions of the purchase and sale agreement or 15 different versions of the letter of support. I just need that final one. So what we've done for the Historic Commission is basically mirrored our entire drive into a Google Drive so they have access to it. We cannot give volunteer board commission members access to the internal drives, but we can copy everything on there, and then you have a working drive through Google that you can work with, and then give us the final version, and we will make sure it goes onto the city drive. So again, that's been, there's a lot of material out there for a lot of boards, have a lot of history. So again, depends on how much stuff you have, but again, we have to have that final version on the internal drives. Just the last couple things, as I mentioned in the internal drives, the last things, we can do investigation for you. Again, depends on the topic. Planning board and the city council start talking about ADUs or tiny homes or different regulations. We can do research for you. But again, if someone on your board is interested in the topic and wants to also help on researching stuff, that would be helpful, right? Because if it's something new you want to look into, what can the redevelopment authority do when it purchases property? What can the tourism advisory committee do when it does certain things, right? We can work together to get that research and get things there. The mayor mentioned this, help recruiting new members. We have an open member on the Redevelopment Authority. We have 2 Planning Board Associate members that are open. We have at least 1 opening, if not more, on the Historic Commission, on the Local Historic District Commission. So we have openings. So if you know people that are interested in volunteering or interested in working with us, we can put that together. We're actually putting a post out for the Redevelopment Authority Board because that's a really specific board, has a lot of interesting projects going on. So we're going to actually give it to the mayor to put in his monthly newsletter. We'll put it out in the OPED newsletter. Actually, the next OPED newsletter is going to be all about the boards and commissions that we staff. So we're going to give some information on that on the next newsletter. And then the last 3 things, primary correspondence. This is key. I think that the mayor touched upon this. The chair, your chair is who our staff should be talking to. It's not because we don't like all the members, it's just because we're going to get 50,000 emails every day and they're going to get lost. If we know it's coming from the chair, it's just easier for us to have a conversation between the chair and the staff, and maybe it's legal, maybe it's OCD, maybe it's personnel, right? Funnel your questions, if you're a board member, through the chair. It's just communication, right? We want to know, we don't need to dictate everything that goes on. We don't need to monitor it. We just need to know what communications are going on, right? Historic Commission has a lot of purview over CPA, over building projects, right? We just need to know the conversation going on. Again, it's the conversation, it's the board's mission, their purview, but we just want to be looped in. But again, if you need us to be communicating with other departments, please have it come to the chair, or if you decide to designate somebody, but at least that one voice that we can work with, I think is really key. And the flip side of that, any information that we're providing to a board or commission, either before a meeting, it's up to that chair if they want to share with everybody, or just wait till the meeting when it comes in the packet, right? We're not necessarily going to email if it's just a decision or it's a draft or something. I'm not going to email, or Jen's not going to email every single member. We're going to email the chair. The final version will be emailed to everybody in the packet. But again, that correspondence, the chair can decide how he or she wants to distribute the information, if it's just at the board meetings or ahead of time. Again, these are the kind of guidelines we can put together. Last two things. I guess last one. That was information by the chair. And it should be known that, this is OPED. We're doing a lot. We're managing over $3 million worth of grants, right? We're working with multiple business owners, new projects, and we have 9 boards and commissions in our office with a staff of 7. And that means really not really a staff of 7, because Stephanie, who is our mass emotion coordinator, she has the bike ped committee. That's her committee. It's through her purview. As we mentioned, Alexandra is kind of a department of 1. She works with the licensing board, all the liquor license renewals, all the events, all the special permits for open air and vending, all the auto removal, all the auto renewals that happen every year, right? So one person supporting the staff of 3 commissioners. So again, that's her whole purview and what she does the entire year. So the rest of those commissions are supported basically by 2 other people, and so it really becomes a lot of work. So again, just bear with us. I know we've been working on getting minutes up to the city council, getting them posted, and again, there's been some website updates, which I won't get into now, but it is a collaboration. So we depend on your work, you depend on our support, and so we just want to make sure that there's clarity, communication. Again, not every board is the same. Some are going to need more attention, some are going to need less. Some boards are more active and take on additional responsibilities themselves, which we appreciate, and some boards need a little more hand-holding. So again, Jennifer Key and myself are available if you guys have any questions. Jennifer manages many of the boards. Obviously, Jeff Burkott manages the planning board, and we also have John Dijek, who works with the HEDIC board. So small but mighty team, but we're getting stuff done. So thanks to everybody for being here, and thanks for your work.
Thanks, Aaron. He said that all in one breath. How'd you do that? Just the key thing to understand, and then we'll ask questions before we move, if there are any questions. It's just for those, so you have, again, going back to like the Conservation Commission has the conservation agent, they hire that person, that person's responsible to that board. Fire Commission hires the fire chief, chief's responsible to that board. You got the DPW superintendent, he's responsible to that board. Then you got other boards that depend on OPED staff. The staff are there for your clerical support. They're not in charge of your board, and your board's not in charge of them, right? So there's that clear distinction. And so that means that government there really depends on cooperation, collaboration, and making sure that your expectations are clear so that there's no bottlenecking and things can keep flowing. And the only time you are your own individual representatives out in the community, but the only time you have any power or authority in your purview is when you're together at a meeting that has been publicly posted via open meeting law, and that's when your powers kick in as a board to make decisions. And so, just understand that, and when you have clerical support, staff support, you're working together. Again, everything that Aaron just described, and I described before that, the posting, the little technical minutia. You guys have your day jobs. If you're retired, maybe have grandkids, you don't want to focus on drafting the minutes or doing the agenda and drafting a letter of support. These that's staff support is there to help you. Just know that you can help with some of those things. It's okay for a volunteer board member to take the responsibility of doing minutes. It's the chair. It's your agenda. You put it together. And really, when you want to call your meetings, you can call your meetings. Right? You meet regularly once a month. If you want to meet in between somewhere, you can do that. Obviously, again, if you have staff support and you need that person at that meeting, you want to make sure you coordinate with that person. If they're not available, you'll have to pick a different day. If maybe you can meet without them and you can post it anyways and meet anyways, right? Like that's your purview as a board and what you do, like you have that power and control. But what we're asking for is just to be mindful and facilitate in a way that's going to be effective, it's going to be efficient, so that we're not missing anything, or even, so that we're avoiding any potential conflict or liability on that front. What we have been doing internally, we've been really trying to strengthen internal controls by building up capacity in our personnel department, legal department, and procurement. And so we want to kind of touch upon those things. That's the core. That team right there that you're going to meet, they're going to come up and say a few words. That's the core central administrative team that's responding to the things that get knotted and untangling them. If it's a personnel related issue, we have systems, policies, and procedures to manage that. If it's a legal issue, we have systems, procedures to handle that. And if it's purchasing anything, whether if it's a contractor, goods and services, capital, there's systems, policies, and procedures to do that as well. And so we're gonna hear from them. But before I dive into that, though, any questions on any of this stuff? I know it's like a fire hose and we're just throwing a bunch of stuff at you, but anything that's sticking out at the moment? No? All right, moving on. Budget, finance, process, procedures, expectations. We're going to be kicking off this soon. One of the key things I want you to know in this segment of the presentation is I want you to be involved in the process with your respective departments. So like fire department, fire chief puts together a preliminary budget. My expectation is the chief at an open public meeting is going to meet with the fire commission, go over the preliminary budget, have that conversation, and make sure that your budget is supported by your board of directors. Same thing with the Parks and Recreation. There has been this long habit here in the city of Holyoke, which is fine if that's the way it was then, and it was okay. It got things through, but there was this dependency on the department head put in the budget as their budget, and department head didn't have to share it with the board. That's not true. I don't want to operate that way. I'm big on open and transparency, and my expectation is that staff are going to work together with their boards in getting those budgets together. Some of you boards have no budget at all. Just know when we do kick off this process, if there is a need, a desire, I know historical commission, for example, there was this, they wanted to some inventory, historical inventory. And so I was able to secure funds, hire a consultant so they can do that work, right? And so if there's projects you want to work on as a board, but you need money, right? I certainly want you to make sure you communicate that to me, number one, so that I know, and have you involved in this process so that we can, figure out where or what line item we can have that funding so you can do the work that you want to do. But just the bottom line is, for those that do have department heads that put together budgets, I just want the community, the board, and the staff to work together and making sure that you guys are crafting a budget that is within your, there's consensus on the direction that department is going. I gave you a timeline. It's subject to change, just to give you kind of a rough idea of when you can expect what we're going to execute in the fiscal year. My process starts in January, where there will be information packets sent out to all departments, just going over the instructions of how to complete the submitting their proposed budgets, along with other, sometimes we include other things in there, like, if you're going to give raises, no more than X% or whatever the case. But if you have it in front of you, you see those bullets there. That is kind of like, those are the key things I keep in mind when I'm going through the budget process, right? We continue to, obviously, the budget needs to reflect anticipated needs. We assess every line item. If there are areas where we expect costs are going to increase, we meet one-on-one, kind of go over in detail why, all in preparation for that public meeting you're going to have with the city council, making sure that I'm in the know, you're in the know, and I'm able to sit next to you at those public meetings, ready to defend your budget in front of the council. So that process that we have, that we've been doing for the last 3 years has been to do exactly that, like help departments build up, submit a balanced budget, so that way when we're in front of the council, we're both on the same page and we don't create a situation where like I go in and I don't agree with something that's there and council kind of smells that and next thing you know, things are being cut. That's the timeline. When dealing with the city council, I put this in here. We have quarterly staff meetings, and we always do a refresher on this because it might be different for each of you, but just generally speaking, I mean, you guys are in political roles, you're political appointments as commissioners and board members. But I know sometimes you might get a certain counselor emailing, calling, asking certain questions. So a lot of times it's really good and you work with the council and you figure it out, get an initiative going, get some questions answered. Maybe someone has a good idea, you bring it back to your board, counselor mentioned this, maybe that's great. That's a community working together, stakeholders working together to solve problems. We like that. Sometimes in that communication, it does, things get a little political and it doesn't feel good. And so one of the things I tell staff all the time is that, and when you get that communication, that call or email, that it just didn't sit right in your stomach, like something's wrong or something's going on, feel free to call me, email me, let me know. You are my political appointment. You're my, in our form of government, you're the representative commissioner, right, of the institution. In Springfield, it's not a board, it's an individual commissioner that oversees different things. Here, it's a volunteer board. And so I want to make sure, you guys are volunteers. I don't want you to feel like this is too much. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to do this. And next thing you know, we lose you as a commissioner or a board member, and now we're stuck trying to find somebody else to fill a seat. We try to do anything and everything to not lose volunteers from boards. Again, I just don't want the politics of our community making people feel like, it's not anything you don't want to get involved with. So if it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't happen too much, believe it or not, but sometimes it does, something doesn't seem right, let me know, and I'll work with you to facilitate and try to, untangle that knot and get through that so we can, keep things flowing, keep the government rolling. With that being said, I'm going to pass it now to our Personnel Director, Kelly Curran, who's going to talk about all the fun policy stuff that we've been working on. Some long-standing, others new, just to make sure that, again, we're protecting the city and protecting you and protecting our staff and, keeping the integrity of the city of Holyoke on the forefront so that we're keeping up with the expectations of the public.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet because everyone said, are we really going to be here until 9? Hopefully not. And I'm not going to read the policy to you. And a lot of you know me and know that I don't favor printing everything. It's not efficient and it wastes paper because we just usually throw it away. So with the sign-in sheet that went around, I will be emailing you these policies. We recently created a social media policy. It's about 10 years overdue. The solicitor and I met with all the unions and kind of impact bargain. They all had some things to add or take away or just make clear, and it was a long process, but we got it done. We know that it's part of your daily life. Everybody, almost everyone. I think I know 2 people that don't have social media, and they always seem happier. So I'm thinking about getting rid of it myself. But we know it's part of our lives. We're not trying to restrict your freedom of speech, but we do want you to be respectful of the city, of each other, and the community. People have a lot to say about Holyoke. We don't need to do it ourselves. So I will share this with all of you. We also have a sexual harassment policy that is outdated, and we plan on fixing to an anti-harassment policy. Most staff had anti-harassment training, so we're gonna try to get this going along with a handbook that's long overdue too. I think the mayor asks me about it every month, but now that I'm fully staffed, we'll definitely get going on it.
We'll talk about it during your next employee evaluation.
Oh, you guys all heard that. Let's see, what else do you have for me here? Onboarding and offboarding. There's minimal boards that have paid members, staff, but we do onboard and offboard them in my office. And if you need help posting your vacancies, Aaron, I know you don't have a lot of paid people, but we will post it on our site and share it. So you could just email me. I think we worked with CPA and a couple other groups to do that. Timekeeping process for those who have, yes.
When there is an onboarding and off, like if there's a new employee or employees leaving, I think the key thing to understand is communicate with the personnel department. That there's a process. We got systems and procedures. We want to make sure that we're able to properly offboard employees or properly bring on board an employee. And so again, if this is your department, your employees leaving, like if you know about it and we don't, just make sure personnel's in the know and she'll work with you through that process to make sure that it's flowing.
And if you need support with anything, I'm always available to help, as is the mayor. What else do we have here? Timekeeping. It doesn't really apply to most boards here. It's 2, and I can meet with them privately. We are moving to an electronic timekeeping system for everyone, which is going to be amazing. To the mayor's point on the his equity commitments, we're having cultural humility training, and I will invite all of you to it when I have your emails. If anyone wants to know what that is, I can read it, but I also want to be short and sweet because I know you all have worked all day and now you're here all night, so I'm trying to be short and sweet. Any questions? Look at that. So efficient.
Thank you, Kelly. I introduce now Lisa Ball, the city solicitor of our legal department, who's going to go over open meeting, public records requests, state ethics, conflict of interest, all the fun stuff.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can be as fast as Kelly was. I'm really impressed with that. I thought that would be much longer. Okay, I'm just going to start. When in need of a legal opinion, I brought a copy of our city ordinance, and I would just let you all know, the ordinance actually reads that if you want a formal legal opinion, the only one that can really request that is the mayor or the city council, or you can ask the mayor if you're on a board to have a formal legal opinion. That said, we get lots of people that email us anyway and just try to ask us simple legal questions. They're usually not simple. You're welcome to email our office. I ask that you please make sure you include me, even if you think that maybe Kathy can answer it or Jane can answer it, just so I know and I can stay on top of what we have to do and who has how much work. So usually everything comes to us. We do try to answer it as quickly as we can, but I can't begin to tell you the amount of emergencies that come in, not necessarily on a daily basis, but several times a week. So sometimes we come in and we intend to do something and we just don't get a chance to do it. But I never mind a nudge. I don't mind people emailing and saying, hey, did you forget about me? Because maybe we did. And so I'd rather get an email saying, I really need an answer to this. So feel free to reach out. If it needs to be a formal legal opinion, please run it through the mayor first. Public records requests. So we get a lot of these, and interestingly, a lot of them end up coming to my office. They usually start with Brenna, who's the city clerk. She usually gets them. They can come in any form, really. They can be orally, they can be written, they can be in an email. Somebody could stop in and just ask for it. There really is no requirement for how they're actually requested. The more important thing is that we're responding right away. We need to respond within 10 days. Sometimes we can do that because it's a very simple request and we can absolutely respond within 10 days, and so maybe we don't need to send the letter. I like to send the letter just to say we have your request. We think we will have it to you within 10 days, or we think this is going to take a long time and we need an additional 30 days. The other thing I would say is, depending on the volume of the request, it might be something that's going to take your office a long time to do. So the first 2 hours, we're not allowed to charge for. Anything beyond that, we are allowed to charge. It's supposed to be the lowest paid person in your office, their hourly rate, or $25. It cannot be more than $25 an hour. So even if I'm responding to a request and it's me doing it all, I cannot charge that person more than $25. You also need to say in the letter what you anticipate the cost to be, which is not an easy thing. I try to, when I'm guessing and estimating, I try to go on the lower side, but sometimes I know it's going to be a lot, because if emails are being requested and they have to be redacted, those are usually something that's going to come to my office. Some things are going to be just done through your own office or your own board, should that come up. I don't know how much it's actually coming up that a board gets a public records request, but they certainly can. Or they might, since there's so many boards that go through OPED, they might come to Jennifer. If there's questions, please ask us. You might just need the letter from us just to kind of give you that extra time. We can tell you the wording that you want to use. We just want to make sure we do it right. The other thing I would say is, there are times that we can actually request from the person making this request. You really need to think about making this request a little bit smaller or more specific, because what you're asking for is going to cost us 10 hours or 15 hours, and this is what it's going to cost for you to get these records. And they cannot get those records until they pay that fee. That's not something people always want to hear, but we're allowed to do that, because if we're going to put all the time in to getting this request done, we do want to make sure that we're getting paid for the work that we're doing. Let's see. Yes.
The public records, I thought the law was, whoever there's a records access officer, and all public records requests has to go through that officer. And so there is a link on our website that goes into detail submissions of public records, so that it's appropriately collected for the appropriate person and then time-stamped and recorded.
It does generally go to Brenna, but it's if somebody sends it to somebody else, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not done properly. Like, the police department has their own records officer. Like, my department does not have a records officer. They should go through Brenna, but traditionally there are officers in different departments that might handle the request. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I want to say on that topic. The mayor had mentioned earlier, emails are a public record. I know most of the boards and commissions don't have a city email. Very important to remember that these emails are public records. You're not to delete them. And with that said, be careful with what you're saying in emails. I remind people that all the time. Like, if it's something you wouldn't want read in court, don't put it in an email. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to skip ahead quickly to something that's just very quick. State ethics, conflict of interest. A lot of people call the law department to ask about potential conflicts. We learned very quickly the State Ethics Commission does not want to hear from my office asking a question unless it is actually my issue. So there is a number that you can call. It's right on the website, but if you want to write it down, it's 617-371-9500. They usually have, they always have actually every day, an attorney that's on call that will take your call. We'll get back to you either that day or the next day. And they're very good. They will, they'll take the time and listen to what your issue is and tell you exactly what you need to do. Is there a certain form you need to file? Or maybe there is no conflict at all. Or is there something that is such a complicated thing that you want to ask them to write an opinion? That they could do, but just be prepared that it may take a long time. They may also direct you back to my office to ask what the city solicitor's opinion is on it, in which case we will weigh in as well. But we always want to hear what state ethics has to say first. So Just remember, it has to be, if it's you, you have to be the one that makes the call. Now, on open meeting law, this will take a little bit longer, but I will try not to read the whole thing to you. So the most recent guide for open meeting law is this one. It's December of 2023. Everyone should have read this. If you haven't, I encourage you to do that soon. One of the things and I read this whole thing today, so I had the opportunity to look at this and then make a number of phone calls around the city to say, are we doing this? And how are we doing? Like, did you know we had to do this? So one of the things that came to my attention is all of you should be reading this guide, number one, and signing this certificate form that says you've received the open meeting law and you've reviewed it, and that you understand what it means. And this would get filed in the city clerk's office. So if you haven't done it, it's not the end of the world. The Attorney General wants you to do it right away. So there is language in here that if you're on a board and you haven't done this, then they want you to do it just as soon as possible. So if you haven't done it, this is not a problem. What we'll do is we're collecting people's emails, so we will start emailing this out to boards. We'll send you all of the attachments that you will need along with the certificate so that you can return it. If you've done this already, then make sure you get these over to the city clerk, because I don't know that she has any of these on file. But it's good for all of you to look through this, because it's very good guidance. It's not that long, and it really defines very well a lot of the common questions that we get when anyone has a question about, public meetings. So it defines what a public body is. It would be all of you. It would be any quasi-board that gives advice to a public body, but it is not something like a committee, let's say, that would advise the mayor. If it's advising him on something that he could make the decision on his own, then that would not fall under the open meeting law. It defines what a deliberation is. Again, be careful with emails. When emails are going out with agendas, that's fine. There shouldn't be any response to that email. There are exceptions to meetings. Probably all of you know this. You can go on-site inspections. You can attend conferences. You can go to other public meetings. There can be no deliberation. Notice requirements, I think you all know that they're 48 hours, but there are times that if there is an emergency that it can be done in a shorter time period than that. Anything that comes to the attention of the chair that needs to be added on can be added on, but it has to be done just as soon as possible. It also, we have, and I confirmed this today, we did confirm with the Attorney General that our means of notifying people is by our municipal website. However, Brenna McGee, who's the city clerk, also posts it outside her office. She doesn't have to, but she does do that. Another requirement is that we have to include in that how to get into the meeting, whether it's to go to it in person where it's being held, or how to access it if somebody wants to go in remotely and view it from home. All of that is required to be in the notice, and as far as I'm told, everyone is doing that correctly. Let's see. Meeting notices have to say date, time, and place of the meeting, list all the topics that you plan to discuss. Executive session, I think you all know that you have to convene an open session first, state the reason for the executive session and the subjects that are going to be discussed without revealing the reason for the executive session. And then reconvene in open session, and all votes have to be by roll call. The public body has to keep accurate records, and I'm not going to go into all of the reasons that you can conduct an executive session. Usually when somebody wants to do it, they do call our office, and I encourage that because we want to see, does it fall under one of these exceptions, or is it really something that you shouldn't be going into executive session for? For the most part, I would say it's the first 3 reasons that we see the most, to discuss a hiring or a discipline of a person, and that person then has to be given notice if we're doing that in the meeting. Strategy sessions for collective bargaining or contract negotiations, and also if there's litigation and having the discussion would have a detrimental impact. That's probably the one that I feel like I see the most with City Council. So for remote participation, which as we said earlier, goes until March 31st, 2025, and we'll be watching that very closely because I don't think any one of us want to see that go away. If a person is participating remotely, everything has to be done by a roll call vote. The chair has to announce the member who's participating remotely. No details about why the person's participating remotely need to be disclosed. And also stating at the start of the session, the person that is there remotely has to state that no one else can hear the discussion that is happening. I don't know whether boards and commissions are doing that. I just looked at that today and thought, I'm not sure that I've seen that, but it's something that I think you all should be aware of. That's under executive session. Well, actually, it's under remote participation. It's under remote participation. So I would say well, no, I take that back. It's for executive session. Because if you're in a public meeting, it doesn't matter who's hearing that. It's executive session only. Now, the minutes. The minutes can be a tricky thing. The minutes are supposed to be done as quickly as possible, within 30 days or within 3 meetings, whichever is later. The Attorney General actually encourages it to be done at the very next meeting. I think the City Council is able to do that. I'm not sure that's as easy for some of you. When I know Jennifer does some minutes, I'm not sure who does all of the minutes, but we want to be doing the minutes and staying on top of that as best as we can. Because if they are requested, we do have to give them within 10 days if somebody makes a request for minutes. Let's see. The executive session minutes, this also can be tricky. Somebody really should be paying attention to executive session minutes because they're easy to lose track of. It's for a long time, they don't need to be disclosed until they do need to be disclosed. So when the matter is no longer it falls under executive session, it has to be disclosed. I don't know how much of that affects these boards here. I know one of them for sure has had executive sessions. City Council has them a lot, so it's more something that we're paying attention to in my office since we're always at City Council meetings about when these minutes actually have to be disclosed and staying on top of that. Complaints. So complaints, any open meeting law complaints have to first go to the public body. They have to do it within 30 days of the violation, and then the public body has 14 days to respond. I would say if you get one, please reach out to us so that we can help you with it. We're happy to help you with it, but just let us know if you get one. After the 30 days, if the person is still not happy with the response that they got, that's when they file it with the Attorney General's office. And then a response has to happen within 90 days. And all of this is outlined in the guidance. It's very good. It reads pretty easy. And as I said, all of it is going to be sent to you. So if you have not left your email, please do that so that we could get this out to you. You'll be able to look at all of this. We confirmed with the Attorney General that it does not have to be done by a physical copy like I have here. So we can electronically send it to you. If for some reason you don't have email, we are happy to make a copy and either mail it to you or make arrangements for you to pick it up. But we're going to make sure that all the boards and commissions have this. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out to us. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you so much, Lisa. we'll have all this stuff sent to you. But again, the important thing to understand is that there are things here available to you to guide you through these things. And if you're not sure or unaware or have questions, don't feel like, oh, it's the mayor, I don't want to bother him. Like, let me know, right? Like, I'm trying to be the accountability office, and I want to make sure that I'm providing the necessary support you need to help navigate complexities and laws and policies so you can get to doing the fun stuff that you signed up for, right? The work that you're doing within your respective boards. But these are things that'll help you stay out of jams. Where am I going here? Which way am I going? I'm going backwards. Comprehensive planning. And so again, if something's confusing or you're unaware, just feel free to reach out directly to me, and I'll work with you. Hey, speak to Kelly or connect with Lisa, and I'll connect you to the appropriate person that can help you the best. On the legal opinion part, when seeking legal opinion, obviously I think, if you're working with your board and it's on your, you made a motion to get in, it was board supported, great. That's the way the council does it. They get council voted legal opinions or whatever, and then that's how we properly respond. But, sometimes there's something coming up and the chair knows, hey, I want to be prepared for this or whatever. We don't mind helping out where we can to get you the opinion ahead of time. And then there are other things where, like, if you really need, just come to me, let me know. I'll assess it. Sometimes I know the answer and we don't even need a legal opinion because it's written at Mass General Law and I can just tell you the answer. Other times it's like, oh shoot, we really need, and I'm calling Lisa saying, hey, I need you to give me the answer for this in preparation for their meeting that's in 4 days or whatever the case. Before we jump into comp planning, I saw that I didn't pull it in here, but it's on the agenda. Procurement and purchasing, again, if goods and services, just connect with Ted. Ted is the chief procurement officer for the city. We want to make sure that we're following procurement laws and guidelines before we go forward and start soliciting on our own proposals and committing to certain contracts and vendors, and then later find out that we didn't follow any of our own rules to get you there. But that happens, believe it or not. Some departments, we have to, really reorganize and make sure that folks understood our expectations when it comes to purchasing. Because there's been issues where if it's a large capital asset, and next thing you know, a contract comes in front of me for $300,000 for X, and I don't see, it's the procurement signature. I haven't seen the legal department signature, and then they look into it. None of them were consulted, and something was committed with a vendor. Now we got this jam that we need to untangle. Just if it's purchasing of anything, whatever the dollar amount is, the technical support expert is Ted in the procurement department. You want to work with Ted, and they'll guide you through what it is you need to do to get through, the service you're trying to acquire. Yes, question.
Just a quick question. Maybe not a question. Maybe this is more of a thing to keep on the burner. But I know we talked last year about probably impossible to give every member on boards and commissions an email. But if there's a way to think about a chair email for each board and commission, that's a city email, at least the chair, so that way that communication. And then the last thing, Lisa, one of the things I think that we struggle with in OPED with all the different minutes, it'd be helpful. I think that really all that technically needs to be in minutes is the vote count. Now, HRA, HEDIC, we like to put in a big narrative and talk about what was talked about in discussion, generalizing it. Is there any guidance on that, or is it really up to each board and commission? As long as the vote's made, who made the motion, who seconded it, how the vote was, is that really all that needs to be in the minutes? And the narrative is really up to each board. You can answer it later. That might be a later question.
I mean, it's spelled out. It's spelled out exactly what should be in the minutes.
And again, everything that we're going through right now is to keep you out of jams. It's so that things can flow properly and things don't get knotted up too much where then I have to step in and do things that nobody likes to do because, it's just, And if there's a cost element to the jam, I have to go to the front of the city council and explain, why I need X amount of money to resolve whatever issue because of, maybe it's a personnel issue or some policy or law that was conflicted with. So, if you're uncertain and don't know, I don't mind if it's any one of you. I know I like the chair going through when you're dealing with departments, but I appoint all of you, so feel free to reach out to me on your own. Doesn't have to be just the chair, right? I don't mind you emailing, calling, whatever, because we're in the same level, I think, as far as representatives of the community. So I certainly want to make sure that each of you will feel supported from the mayor, right, to support the work, because you're volunteering your time for the city, and I just want to make sure that you feel like I value your time here, right? So feel free to ask questions, reach out to the office, let me know, and I can get you to the right path for the answer you're trying to get. So now the great stuff here, comp planning. As you all know, we're doing a citywide comprehensive plan, formerly known as master planning. Our last plan was done in 1999, 25 years ago. We've procured about $300,000, I think, to hire the necessary consultants to help us facilitate through the drafting and the development of our new comprehensive plan. Is there anyone from Aaron, anybody that want to give like a little update? Yep, Aaron's going to give the update. Great.
And I just want to also, before I do, I just want to make sure, as I know, I don't know. I know they're out of here. But Alexandria, Stephanie, anything to add from your perspectives of staffing? You guys are okay? All right. Okay. Didn't mean to call you out as you're leaving. Come on now. So comprehensive master plan. We're also partnering with OCD, Alicia, with the Office of Community Development. So are we talking acronyms a lot? So if you don't know the acronym, you can just yell at us and tell us, what are you saying? OCD is working on their 5-year consolidated plan for the federal funds that they get in. So we partnered together for the community engagement. The last community engagement listening session is Thursday, the 21st of this month. It's the third one. We'd really love to have as many people come as they can. It's from 5 to 7 at the YMCA. There'll be some press going out next week. There'll be some additional focus groups happening over the next couple of months, but this is the last big community engagement effort. On the 20th, there's a big youth involvement community engagement with all the youth serving agencies. It's going to happen, I think, at the City Hall Ballroom with the youth there, as well as the agency leaders, Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, all these great organizations that we love. And then on the 21st, Thursday, we're going to be visiting the Taxpayers Association for lunch, getting their input. And then that night, from 5 to 7, there will be food there. You don't have to be there for the full 2 hours. It's more of a station situation where you go from station to station, talk about different things, open space, zoning, economic development, housing. So where your passion or where your work maybe lies, it'd be really great to have that sort of input. So we'd love to see people come by on Thursday, the 21st, to give their input. There is also information on the website, on the Holyoke City Hall, on the city website. Right at the top, you can see the master plan. There's a survey you can also fill out. That information, again, is going to both of our departments to inform us. And this is really important because this is the roadmap for the next 20 years. So the plan will be that there'll be there's a working committee. There will be a draft plan put out in early spring. There'll be public comment on that, and then a final plan will come out in late spring, early summer. And this is really to guide us on what the city looks like and what we want for the next 20 years. So when we talk about zoning, we talk about certain areas we want certain things. We talk about our efforts for green technologies and infrastructure. We talk about the kind of businesses that we want in the city of Holyoke. This is the time to have that input, because as much as my office is called the planning office, it's really a reactionary office. We're not out there creating what we want to see in every single corner and every single place of the city. We're reacting to what comes before us. If something is sold, a private developer, a person buys a historic building, they've got historic regulations. We're reactive. So this is our opportunity to actually think big. This is our big picture opportunity. So all of you as city residents and all of you as board members, it'd be really great to have your input on that. So Thursday, the 21st, hope to see you there. Come by, give your opinion, fill out some of the fun stuff, and it's very interactive. And again, we don't have to be there for the full 2 hours. So, all right. As the mayor says, you get what you plan for.
You get what you plan for. No, it's just great. I mean, just to let you know that that comp plan does have a climate resiliency twist and focus. Everything that we do when it comes to growth management and land protection, and all has a direct impact to climate resiliency. And so we're making sure we're looking at it through that lens. And obviously, I don't get to sit in every kitchen table. I don't live in every corner of our city. And so I'm leaning on each of you to extract that information, even in the most basic way possible. It can be a conversation you had with a friend while going fishing, right? And something he told you about something that they really liked in Holyoke that they want to make sure is never touched. Just happen out of conversation, not necessarily talking about the city of Holyoke's comp plan, but it's just a conversation. Bring that information back so we're protecting the things that people love, and then reorganizing if it's a zone change or ordinance change or special permit change that might be restricting growth and development in spaces where people want to see growth and development. So those are the things we're really trying to get to the bottom and understanding what's important to the community, so that as leaders, when we're applying for those grants, when we're allocating resources, and we want to make sure that we're prioritizing more or less the direction that this community wants to go when it comes to those different subject areas that are included in a plan. So get involved, bring that information out so that we can make sure that this plan truly reflects the entirety of the city. The next we have here, community development. Alicia's going to go over these resources available to you. These are things that I'm sure each of your respective areas have depended on in the past. Others, you might never knew you can leverage these resources so that we can, do community development work in the city.
Excellent, thank you. So good evening, and thank you all for being here. I think in all my years with the city, this is the first time that we've had all the boards and commissions in the room, and I think it's a model that we should probably think about sort of continuing and repeating as we go, because it's a great way to get a whole bunch of people who are influential in the community and then give you a bunch of information that you can then take out. So I'm going to actually start at the bottom. I'm pitch hitting for Yoni, our conservation director, tonight. There are flyers over on the chairs. I happen to like paper. I'm still old-fashioned like that. Yoni is currently, so there is a lot of planning going on in the city of Holyoke right now. So Yoni is currently working on the city of Holyoke's hazard mitigation and climate adaptation plan. It's a plan, the hazard mitigation plan is a plan that is supposed to be done every 5 years. It's most critical because it keeps us able to enroll in the FEMA federal flood insurance program. You probably don't think that like a lot of properties here in Holyoke would be eligible for federal flood insurance, but we actually have quite a few. So it's not just along the Connecticut River, but those folks in West Holyoke, anybody who lives along Tanneray Brook, a lot of our households do have federal flood insurance, and this is critical for maintaining that. It's also critical for accessing federal grants, which we hope will continue to be forthcoming. Hazard mitigation, folks say like, it's not applicable, but all you have to do is look at what's going on this afternoon along the Turnpike and the wildfires, and that's absolutely one of the things that we are looking at in the hazard mitigation plan. So if you think about New England, it used to be like, I worked on the plan like maybe 15 years ago, I think, maybe 20 years ago, and the big thing was flooding. When we did the plan 20 years ago, we discovered that our school buses that would be used for evacuations in the event of flooding were actually being parked and stored in a floodplain here in Holyoke, right? So that's the kind of like why we plan. But when you think about climate change, so we've had flooding, we've had tornadoes, we've had blizzards, we now have wildfires, which is something I don't think any of us had ever considered. And the only thing, God help us, that we haven't really had is a mudslide. So really important. Yoni's looking for a lot of support on it. Get out and get involved on that one. So CDBG. So this is our big year for CDBG. We're working on our consolidated plan. It's a 5-year plan that we submit to HUD. And I just want to kind of highlight like why are we doing it and why is it different than Aaron's comprehensive plan? So Aaron's comprehensive plan, obviously it's led by OPED. He does his every 20 years. It's a citywide review. He's looking at every corner of our community. The comprehensive plan is looking at physical attributes. So as Aaron described, it's looking at zoning, it's looking at the built environment, it's looking at housing. It's a requirement of Mass General Law, actually. So they're following an MGL format, and it's a long-term plan for the physical improvements that we want to see in the city. If you flip that physical improvements to more of a social and demographic and community needs, that's my 5-year consolidated plan. So the consolidated plan gets submitted to HUD. It makes us eligible for HUD federal grants moving forward. It takes a snapshot of the community at this point in time, looking at our demographics, our housing units, who do we have living in our community, what's our unemployment rate, how many homeless folks do we have in the city, what is the impact of opioid. It's more of a social snapshot. So that's the difference between the two plans. However, they both require substantial community engagement. And so this year it made sense, instead of inviting folks to one meeting and another meeting and then trying to explain all this acronym stuff, that we put it all together. Because if Jennifer's coming to a meeting and it tells me that she needs an affordable housing unit, it doesn't matter if that comment lands in the comprehensive plan or the consolidated plan. We've heard from a constituent that affordable housing is important. So Aaron's had several listening sessions. He's got several more opportunities for you to be involved. I also have lots of opportunities for you to be involved, and I want to hear from you all. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. I've created what I'm calling an open comment period. So between now, it started a few weeks ago, but between now and November 28th, if you have an idea, if you run into a fishing buddy, if your elderly mom says, I need fuel assistance, if your neighbor says my roof is leaking, if your kid needs daycare, please email me. I'm going to incorporate all of that kind of information and those sort of little one-off comments into our plan. Because if I get enough of them, then that's a need. If I get enough calls, people saying I need a roof, it's going to land in the plan. So open comment period. We'll be producing our draft. Our draft will be released in the early spring. There'll be a 30-day public comment period, but the yellow sheets over there outline all the opportunities for you to be involved. So I just have to give a shout out to my staff. So Aaron was saying he's a staff of seven, managing $3 million. So here we go. I'm going to brag. OCD is a staff of 3. I have 2 amazing coworkers. You all know Zaida, who's our finance manager, and Ashley, who's our special programs manager. And we're managing $47 million worth of grants. So I just want to reiterate the point about purchasing and procurement. So much of what goes on is behind the scenes. And you all, boards and commissions, may have an idea for a project. Depending on the funding source, the requirements are very different. So you may not know that XYZ is going to be funded with federal funds from our office, and that has a whole litany of requirements that you may not be aware of. So you may think that going to get a quote from a vendor is like fine, but what you may not know is that it requires federal prevailing wage rates, and someone in my office has to go in the federal system, pull them, and provide them to that vendor. So I have to reiterate the procurement piece. In terms of our CDBG world, this year we got $1.1 million. We funded 3 non-public service projects. We're doing sidewalks, Springdale Park, and McMahon Playground. We're doing 11 public services for $179,000. Home ARP and home. So every year we've gotten home investment partnership funds. Those are strictly for affordable housing development. Currently we have an allocation of $437,000 from this year, but I also have some old money. We have almost $2 million in home ARP funds. That's funding that's specifically for homeless housing. We're trying to figure out what to do with that. But stay tuned for RFPs for both of those programs. ARPA. So I am happy to say that our ARPA program is humming along. We allocated, I'm going to get out of the light. I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute and I can't see anything. So there we go. So the city of Holyoke got almost $38 million in ARPA funds to assist with COVID recovery. It was allocated across 72 projects through a public allocation process that we did 3 or 4 times over in the last few years. 21 of those projects are fully completed and closed, which is great news. 6 of those projects have been canceled. All project funding must be committed by this December 31st. So we are scrambling to make sure that anybody that got an allocation is working, and that anybody that got an allocation and is not working is going to have their project canceled. All projects have to be completed by June 30th, 2026. So you're going to see a lot of activity gearing up over the next year. And then the other piece is, because of some wise investments that the city made, we have 1.5 million in interest earned on our ARPA money that we got here in the city. So unlike CDBG, where we have to go in and draw it every week or every month from the federal system, they gave us a check for almost 38 million. That money went into an account that was interest bearing. Rory did a great job with it. We have about 1.5 million in interest. We're going to drive that back into the ARPA program. We're going to focus on housing and working with Aaron to bring projects that need just a little bit of money to fruition. So that's really exciting. Any questions on that so far? Okay.
I'm wondering, and I know this isn't I don't mean to open up something and get off track of the high level presentation, but Alicia, if you could just do me a favor and just give an update on the funding for Victory Theater. I don't want questions or anything like that. Just to be clear, this recording is going to be publicly on the Access channel. People can get the update.
Yes.
And avoid, certain rumors or whatever the case.
Yes. So I made this public statement at our department head a few weeks ago. And so I'm going to make the public statement now, so you can take it to the bank or not in this case. MIFA Victory Theater was allocated $2 million of ARPA funds in the second tranche. As part of the allocation process, all of our applicants knew at the time of application that they had to meet the U.S. Treasury requirements and our deadlines. Unfortunately, because of circumstances probably beyond the control of MIFA, they were not able to fundraise to make the project, to get the project to a point where we could enter into a contract with them to know that we would have a project by June 30th, 2026. It's a great project, but we cannot risk the city's $2 million in ARPA funds on a project that may not come to fruition by the time I have to report it in my office to the U.S. Treasury. So we looked at all the options, we've met with them, and the mayor officially withdrew the ARPA allocation to MIFA 6 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, more or less.
So we're going to continue to work with them. There's some other HUD funding for economic development, historic preservation, but I will share publicly one of the concerns that we had in our office in the underwriting of the project was that every time we met with MIFA, the project costs went up, and they were going up exponentially. And we could not risk, we are risk adverse, the 3 of us in our office, because not only do you put the city on the hook for payback, but we become personally liable for big blotches like that. So we couldn't do it. MIFA knew we couldn't do it. MIFA knew they couldn't do it, that the gap just kept getting bigger and bigger. So we are committed to working with them.
Yeah, it was nothing that they did, nothing that we did. It was just program parameters, guidelines, and we had to pivot because it just wasn't meeting the...
So that's the way I'm describing it. It is a pivot. It's a pivot to a more appropriate funding source. This happened to be a very public pivot. However, we do these every single day. We say to folks, like, we don't think we're an appropriate funding source for you. We need to reallocate funds. So that's the MIFA story, and they are one of the projects that was canceled. Now, the question I can anticipate is what happened to that $2 million? Is that the question? Okay. So the $2 million that would have been allocated to MIFA, the city actually used for its own revenue losses, which was one of the first ARPA eligible activities, where our treasurer, auditor, and mayor looked at the losses that the city had as a result of COVID, and were able to immediately take those ARPA funds and put them towards the lost revenues. So the 1.5 million interest is still in our bank account, and we're going to be going out for RFP for housing projects, because we know that housing is where it's at right now. So 2 things to watch for: housing, and then working with Aaron's office to have a program that we can get projects over the edge. So for instance, in the past couple weeks, we've heard from folks who are having trouble with water connections and sewer connections. I just heard about a sewer connection today. Small money gets these projects over the line, and that's what we intend to do.
And these are projects invested, state investment, other resources that are going to put commercial, residential properties online onto the tax rolls. So it's like meeting that gap for them on a local level.
So one of the requirements of the use of federal funds is that we're the last money into the deal, which was where MIFA got hung up, is we could not be the last money into the deal on that. For the projects that Aaron's working with, whether they're CPA funded or state funded, they just need a tiny bit of money to push it over the edge. And that's our intent, is to push some of these folks over the edge. The 1.5 million allocation process will be public. If you have comments, if you have projects, please let me know. Any questions?
Is the city of Hoyle involved in any funding at all with that sports complex?
The question was, is the city of Holyoke involved at all with the sports complex? The answer is for funding. The answer is no. For funding, we're not giving them money for anything. There's other strategic alignments and partnerships we're able to help. I think we've worked through HEDIC, they've worked with gas and electric with some site, something, but actual money, we no.
Yep. Yeah.
So if there are 6 canceled projects, and we've heard about 2 million of the 6 canceled projects,
yep.
What is happening with the money from the remainder, the other 5?
So great question. So the other 5, that funding, and I can get you a list if you're interested, or if you want to go on our website, I think we're up to date on our U.S. Treasury postings. But those other 5 were projects where the applicant either had other funding sources available and didn't need ARPA, or again was not ready to execute a contract with us, or told us they didn't want the money at all. For instance, Veterans Transportation, because remember this money goes back to early days of COVID, so Veterans Transportation was one of the projects that decided they didn't need the money after all. That money was recirculated into the ARPA program. The ARPA program management allows the mayor to increase budgets by up to 15% over his signature alone, and so projects that were funded and needed extra money, we use the cancel project money towards that. And that's all fully tracked. So if you're into like a finance, come see us and we'd be happy to show you how that all worked. It's been a lot. Last funding source, which is very exciting because I think this is one, COVID recovery has been kind of a long slog, and it has shifted a lot over the last 4 years, and every week now the U.S. Treasury sends us new guidance. This one I'm really excited about because like I said, I think it's going to make a difference, and that's our opioid settlement money. So as of right now, we have about $500,000 in the bank. We're going to get some more. Holyoke is going to receive 0.966% of the total municipal abatement funds that will be available from the state. 0.966 sounds like a really tiny percentage. However, we have when I looked at the list today, we have one of the highest percentages of allocations from the state. This is money that was the result of court settlements with the pharmaceuticals, the big pharma. Through our settlement agreement, we can use the funding for treatment, support people in recovery, things like housing, make connections to care, transportation to care, case management, that sort of thing, harm reduction, providing treatment, needles, working with folks who are involved in the criminal justice system, working with women who are pregnant or parenting that are directly impacted by opioids, and then preventing misuse and implementing prevention education. Big component of it can be in our schools. Our planning process for opioids funds mirrors our CDBG and ARPA world because we know that our CDBG program is very compliant. We've been audited now for ARPA. We know that's very compliant. And so we're going to keep the mission and the administration the same. So what we're doing right now is we're finishing up a management plan that the mayor will sign off on that says here's how we're going to do it. We're going to then seek input from persons with lived experience, experts, staff, and organizations in the field. We're then going to have an allocation process for those funds. There'll be a grant application for both internal and external candidates. And then we have to put together an allocation plan, just like we do with ARPA and CDBG, that says here's all our applicants, here's who the city council recommends, here's who the CAC recommends. Big emphasis of the state is community input, addressing service disparities, and leveraging program and services. So we have a lot. I'd like to say that like ARPA's winding down and we can go back to just my like regular old world of CDBG. But we're really pleased to be working with the Board of Health on the opioids. So that's all I have. Yes?
Any questions? The question was, will there be a community meeting regarding opioid?
There's going to be community meetings. There's going to be community surveys. We have city councilors who have expressed interest in working with us and doing one-on-one with persons who have personal lived experience with opioid. I think the Board of Health is going to have a key role in this, probably writing a lot of the technical piece. But yes, there's a whole, that's one of the emphasis the state has, is that we have to do community outreach. We're not ready. We're not going to start the community outreach until January or February. We got to get beyond where we're at now. So,
But it is
any
coming.
questions?
Pay attention, be involved in that process. That's going to be the next thing of how we want to spend down opioid. Jose.
As far as the funding, it's the one-time payment of $500,000.
The question was as far as the opioid funding, if it's a one-time payment of $500,000.
No, it's
no.
over 28 years. I think
20 years.
20 years, and it's a percentage of what the state takes in. And I want to say that we've estimated it's at $75,000 a year after our initial payment. I think that's the estimate.
We're currently sitting on about
500,000.
Why did I think it was more than that?
I just pulled it from Eunice. I had it from Eunice from our department head meeting.
So the 500,000.
It might not be fully booked, but right now Eunice
it's
is
sitting in a
500.
dedicated revenue account, untouched. That was the initial upfront payment, but every year for 20 years is going to be about 75,000.
I think it's about 75,000.
I wouldn't be surprised if it'll be more than that. I think we're going to hear more about, results of litigation with other opioid companies. So it might be more, but right now we can anticipate about $75,000 a year for 20 years.
One of the things that we're trying to figure out is, in the internal conversations, is the state does allow us to partner with surrounding communities, and we're trying to figure out if that's beneficial to Holyoke or not. So, if anybody has thoughts on that. Yeah, so one of the things the state is encouraging us to do is to form like consortiums with adjacent communities and pool our opioid money. To pool our resources and maybe have a bigger bang for our buck. Or if you were going to hire a social worker, then each community would put in for that social worker, but the social worker would work across jurisdictions, across geographies. But we have so much need in our city that I'm hesitant to spread it out. But on the other side, one of the things that we worry about on all our social services is we don't have capacity. This community just does not have enough capacity in several key areas. So, question over there?
No, just a thought or comment is just to please really focus on working with the people who are already working with those with lived experience. We don't need to always reinvent the wheel. And there's so many great organizations in our city that are working hard with very few funds. So that would just be my only comment. Is please work with those that are already fighting the good fight that utilize this money.
Can you repeat the thought?
Sure, absolutely. So the comment was that please don't recreate the wheel, to work with the organizations that are already on the ground, know the people that are on the streets, know what services that they need. And I can commit to you that we're not going to recreate the wheel, because one of the things that the city departments have been saying is we don't want to be social workers, we don't want to be therapists, we don't have the expertise, we don't want to be housing navigators, that's not our wheelhouse. So we want to be able to work with the folks that are on the streets. And CDBG round, for the folks that are affiliated with agencies, our CDBG round of funding is going to be opening in December, so watch for applications for that funding for July 1st, 2025. That grant application will be out in the next few weeks. Thank you all.
No questions for Alicia? No more? Just one clarifying point regarding the lost revenue. This current fiscal year, the city has no dependency on any ARPA loss revenue. That was from previous fiscal years, so I just didn't want that assumption out there. We were able to balance this year's budget with no ARPA loss revenue replacement dollars. So just, I know it gets confusing. Municipal finance is complicated, but just in case someone said, oh, lost revenue, I thought we didn't do, that's not the case. I know it's a lot that we threw at you. If there are any questions of anything we discussed, or maybe there's something else on your mind, happy to answer that right now or afterwards. Questions? Lynn Horan.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, again, I really, yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
Yeah, just two kind of general questions in that maybe other boards are also experiencing this confusion sometimes. And first, I want to thank everybody that's here that helps to make the city work, both the paid employees and also the many volunteers and those that were too busy to even come tonight. I lived in a lot of different cities in 7 different states, and I've not seen a community that has such willingness. For all our passion and dissension, it's pretty amazing, so I appreciate the opportunity. So in my board, for instance, we have come upon a problem sometimes in the Commission on Disabilities, where we have an issue that needs to be addressed, and we have to look at our bylaws. And you look at the state, but sometimes they come in conflict with the city. And we find a difficulty with some of those things. For the first thing, I can actually have a good contact or two at MOD, which is the Massachusetts Commission Office of Disabilities. So I can get that. It's all written up. It's all there. But trying to find the city history and laws, particularly on disability, is very hard. There's an app, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name that I know other people use. And I'm pretty good at my topic sentences when I put them in, and it doesn't come up with anything. We also have that issue with the city council, that they may right now, the ordinance committee is dealing with an issue that's a disability issue, and we have not been included in it, even though these are the people we're appointed to take care of. So that's mostly, and that comes under the other general question, again, is just being aware of what the process is, so that we are not being redundant or calling multiple offices, or like you said, having multiple members of our commissions calling you at all. That it helps tonight to hopefully get some of that communication. But that's my biggest question, is when that conflict comes.
That's why I go back to my earlier points about communicate, collaborate, and be transparent. There are, and it happens, and I know it happens because I'll get the call from you guys and say, oh, this organization is doing this and no one's told us. And I get it, right? Like, well, there's no law that says that they have to, but if you're responsible for kind of, advocating for this, it'd be a good idea if you were invited, right? And I think that that's where we just need to pay attention, work together, be mindful, where like on your respective boards, and we can communicate this to the city council as well. If X comes up that involves commission or the disabilities commission or the historical commission or something else, right? Like even though there's no law or anything that requires you, I can see how they might easily oversee that. Be mindful of like possibly inviting somebody in the subject area so that it helps guide the decisions that they're respectively trying to make. We want to establish an environment of collaboration, and sometimes things do get missed and overseen, and so we just need to be, number one, individually be mindful of that, but also number two, if you do see something coming up where you guys are talking to each other, hey, did you know that this is happening, or what, so that now Lynn is aware of this city council and she can make herself available, go to that, work together. The conflict part, you mean like state law and conflicting with local law?
Yes, so it might
Lisa,
be
you wanna-
how many people the state requires us. Sometimes they suggest, but in these boards and commissions, they often recommend that we have a certain amount of meetings a year, that we have a certain amount of folks, like on the Disability Commission, they recommend at least, if not require, that most of the participants be disabled. But coming into a commission that has been functioning in a really minimal way, frankly, for 20 years, we're also trying to exert some updated changes in a fair-minded way too. But
So I would look at the word recommend a little bit different than required. I'd want to just look at exactly how it reads. I think what you were talking about, the acronym, it's Municode. So Municode is what houses all of the city's ordinances, the city charter. It's very easy to navigate through. You just have to go on to Municode and then look up Holyoke, and it's all right there. But Kelly's my next door neighbor at work, so she can lead me to what it is that you're looking at, and maybe we can help you out with that.
I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Lynn. And Lynn, you're doing an amazing job on that commission. I appreciate.
Well, thanks.
Any other? Oh, sorry. Oh, any other questions? Anybody? Yeah. You got it? Great. Thanks. Yeah. Oh.
That's why the floor's rubber.
I think it still works. More of a comment, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You used the word on more than one occasion called jams. I, for one, am sitting here and saying I'm not worried about jams. I'm worried about staying out of jail. So, to that point, thanks to you, Lisa, to you, this kind of a session will allow us to stay out of jail. And we thank you for that.
Thank you. I was thinking maybe we can do 2 times a year where we convene as a Holyoke team and it won't be solely going over the same stuff we went over today, but obviously there's updates happening in the city. There's some great projects in the pipeline. There's always this comp planning we're trying to get through. This can be a form of soliciting public feedback because you are the public, and having these meetings help us keep our finger on the pulse so that we're heading in a good direction. So there's always some good things that we can have a good, healthy agenda to have an all boards meeting be very fruitful. If you guys think that this is a good idea, we can certainly plan for that. Maybe I would say like 2 times a year. If you think 3, we can do 3. 2 times a year. 2 times a year. All right, we'll do that. So I appreciate the comments. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
If we could just make sure everyone's signed in.
Make sure everybody's signed in. Make sure I have your emails. I will have 2 set. I do want to have and I do have a chair's email. You don't know, but I email the chairs. Not regularly, but when there's big things coming that I feel like you should know. I want to keep that updated with current chairs so that I'm not missing anybody. And then I'll have a separate email thread in blind copy with all of you, purely informational, not conversational, and I don't want to violate open meeting law, and put you in a position where you go to jail. I don't think you go to jail for open meeting law. But with all that being said, thank you so much for your time today, and not only today, every day thereafter that you're putting in to look out for the good people of Holyoke. People are going to be watching this at home. I hope that the folks that are watching at home, this was informational and helpful to you about what your city is doing to improve the quality of life. And when you see these people out there in the community, be sure, public, you tell them thank you. Thank you.
Thank